Hi, welcome to Crab Park. I thought I'd come out here today and do this because it's a little nice out and it's pretty crowded in my place. I was online today and I was checking, and apparently we've now hit our next step in the movement of the forces that be to govern what we see in our daily press and in our daily life. Apparently now YouTube is the next victim in all this, as they've posted a whole new set of rules on Facebook as to what will be allowed and what won't be allowed up on Facebook nowadays as accepted videos. Now, you have to understand that for those people such as myself and a lot of others who don't get their daily news from the mainstream media anymore because we don't trust those outlets, most of the information we get, most of the news we get, comes from sites that are most readily available on YouTube. There'd be sites like the Young Turks, the Humanist Report, Redacted Tonight. There's many of them, many of them, and these sites have been known for giving the news without the going over that the establishment has managed to get permission to give the articles that the mainstream media puts out before they're released. The evidence of this was shown clearly when the DNC leaks were revealed, and in there you can actually see, in those emails, you can see articles that MSNBC and others are sending back and forth between Debbie Wasserman Schultz or I forget the name of their press correspondent, who he actually resigned along with Debbie Wasserman Schultz when these leaks became public. But they were getting the newspaper articles sent to them before they were released to the public to be okayed, like to be vetted, and only after they were satisfactory to the Clinton camp were these articles allowed then to be sent out for human consumption, you might say, for us to read the way Hillary would like them to be read. And this, of course, is why Hillary Clinton, in the middle of a presidential campaign, hasn't given a press conference in now about 273 days, I believe it is, because she doesn't have to, because everything you read in the mainstream press has been okayed by her campaign, and therefore you're getting her press conferences every day when you read the newspapers and you watch the nightly news on TV. This is all stuff that has no relevance as far as truth goes. It's just what Hillary Clinton wants you to hear. And if it's not Hillary Clinton, it's Barack Obama. And I published on my blog site just a few days ago a complete listing of how all the major news networks in the United States are tied by either occupation or marriage to either Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama. And it shows you quite clearly how these people are all in bed together. So we get our news, the people that won't digest that kind of news, we get our news off of sites like I said, Redacted Tonight, the Young Turks, all these people who don't go through this process. They just publish the news as they see it and as they find it, and with their own research. Well, now YouTube, and you have to understand that Google now owns YouTube, and I had to actually switch my browser because you can't even use Google's browser anymore. It won't give you any bad search results on Hillary Clinton. If you look up anything to do with the Hillary campaign and there happens to be some bad and some good search results, they only give you the good ones. They won't turn up a bad one for you. Okay, they actually filter their search results. And I showed in one of my blog results a comparison between their search results and Bing's search results, and proved this to people, that if you just type in the same search in both of those two search engines, the difference in the results that come back to you, what each of those pages wants you to believe are the top 10 results in either of those search engines, is just black and white. It's totally different. So I couldn't even use my Chrome search engine anymore. My Chrome browser, I mean. I couldn't even use it anymore because it was so heavily biased towards the Clinton campaign. And I'm Canadian, but I follow American politics. So switching over to Firefox, I did that. And I could always get my news without the heavy bias by following YouTube and following these progressive sites that don't subscribe to the fake news reports, but actually give it to you as it is. Well, now with the new regulations, and this is what YouTube did, they put out a whole bunch of new regulations yesterday, and they tried to disguise it as a move by their advertisers. They put it out as advertising regulations. They said that there's a whole bunch of new advertising regulations, and the advertisers will not advertise on sites that cross these guidelines. And they outline the guidelines. And they said, if the advertisers deem that you have crossed any of these lines, we will put a $ by the video that crosses that guideline. And we won't be able to publish it because we won't be able to get any advertising for it. Now, of course, this only affects the larger sites that actually make money on advertising for their videos. Of course, small people like me who don't get any advertising on the few videos that I put on YouTube, it's not going to affect me in that way. But they'll still apparently censor anything they don't like that I put out. But the whole concept of this was ridiculous because the guidelines that they list are so vague that there's literally nothing that you could put up that wouldn't cross one of these guidelines. There's absolutely nothing. I couldn't put up a reworked Disney cartoon without crossing at least one or more of these guidelines. And that's what they've done, because it has nothing to do with the advertisers. It really has nothing to do with the advertisers, and it has nothing to do with the regulations that they've listed. I mean, they list things like foul language, and they list things like, if one of them is if it's politically controversial. Well, these are political sites, a lot of these sites. A lot of these sites exist only to discuss political controversy. How are you going to have any comment you make on a political site that isn't controversial? I mean, that's ridiculous. There's no comment you can make that isn't controversial. So they've made it so that you can't possibly say anything. And it's not because they're going to look for you to actually break one of those rules. It's just simply so that when their controllers come across something they don't want out there, they can tell them to pull this one, and then when you ask them why they pulled that video, they can say you crossed one or more of their regulations. But of course, it won't matter. You'll have crossed one or more of their regulations with every video that you put up. And this is just their way of getting whichever ones Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama wants pulled. And you'll have no recourse because, of course, every video you put up will have violated at least one or more of the regulations. So I really don't know what to do about this. I mean, here in Canada, I don't think it's going to affect us much or for long. Canadians will not put up with this kind of censorship. There's just no way. I know Americans talk a lot about democracy a lot more than we do, but actually I think Canadians have always defended the principles of democracy a lot more than you have. I say that with no shame at all. We always have stood up for the core principles of democracy, and we believe in freedom of the press here, and we believe in free speech. But apparently you guys don't. Because this year, when your primary election, which is supposed to be like the heartbeat of your entire democracy, the electoral process, when your primary election was stolen from you, and they were caught. I mean, no question about it. They were caught, both by your own mainstream media and by the revelations in those emails. They were caught doing it. Nobody complained. There's still all kinds of people apparently voting for the people who actually stole this election. So, I mean, that one shocked me. I really thought there'd be much more of an uproar. The part about freedom of the press, I'm just assuming that they're already doing it so well in your country that you don't even know it's happening, which is why, whereas I never before actually got involved to the point of using my own blog as a platform, and people who come to my blog can tell you that, I've never been politically active on my blog. The last 2 days now, my last 2 posts, I have been, and I intend to become more politically active, because I really think they must be much more advanced with their blackout policies and their dictatorial methods of having you hear only what they want you to hear. And so I think you have to start hearing it from a lot more sources than what you're hearing it from, because I don't think you're hearing it from enough sources. I mentioned in my last blog article that I can remember here in Canada when Tiananmen Square took place, that even though it was on national news all over the world, here in Vancouver, where we have a very large Chinese population, I had friends who told me how when they tried to contact relatives in China and discuss this with them, the relatives they had in China denied it happened. I mean, we watched it happen on TV, tanks running over people and, you know, the mass arrests and the rest of it. The whole world was witness to it. But in China, they were convinced it never happened. Why? Because the government controlled the press. The government controlled the radios and the TV. The government controlled everything the people saw and heard. And so to those people, Tiananmen Square never happened. And I remember the frustration of my Chinese friends as they tried to tell me this, that even though they had seen it with their own eyes, they couldn't convince their relatives back in China that it had actually happened. And I'm seeing the same thing now happening with my friends across the border, except it's not quite at that level yet. But it could be very soon. Very soon. There's a definite attack on your press and on your freedom of speech. And we're seeing it now again, another step with Google, as they now limit what can be said or what videos can be uploaded to YouTube, which has always been a bastion of freedom of speech. YouTube has always been wide open and free. And now in just one day, they've changed all the rules and regulations. Now, like I said, I don't know how hard they're going to try to enforce this. There's already major blowback on every progressive station out there. They're all just up in arms about this. And I don't know if Google can actually sustain the loss of revenue that they may sustain as a result of this. I mean, I know Hillary Clinton and her minions have tremendous amounts of resources at their disposal. They're backed by billionaires and everything else, but how much are they willing to spend? Because YouTube stands to lose billions. I mean, it's one thing for the advertisers to say they're not going to advertise, but if you take away what made these channels popular, I mean, TYT alone, the Young Turks Network, went from being nothing just a few years ago. It didn't exist. Cenk Uygur, the gentleman who started it, used to be an anchor for MSNBC. And when they wouldn't let him be a true reporter, when they started trying to rein him in because he wanted to be a real reporter and they wanted him to be a corporatist, he began his own. He left MSNBC and he started his cable news on the internet, and he now has the largest following of any news corporation or whatever you want to call it, news organization ever. Over 1.5 billion followers now on the internet. Now this is what I'm saying. Now to be like full disclosure here, whereas I used to rate him on a scale of 1 to 10 at about a 7.5 or an 8, I'm now only rating Cenk on his main channel as a 4.5 or a 5, because I felt that Cenk went over to the Hillary Clinton camp himself a while back, but he doesn't just have the main channel. He has spawned a whole bunch of offshoots, and among them are two of my favorites, the Jimmy Dore Show and also TYT Politics, and I give both of them 8.5s. They're both amazing. And so this is what Cenk's legacy is to me, is that he has a tremendous, I can't even begin to name the number of channels that have spawned off of TYT. And so he owns this huge empire now of channels, basically. And they're not all directly tied to Cenk anymore, but what I'm getting at is that he still did this remarkable thing, but his own main channel, like, it's 1.5 billion people, right? That's how many people are out there that want to hear the news unfiltered. They don't want people telling them what they can and can't hear. They want to hear the news, for what the news is. And there's such a, now, and this is true, now there's mainstream news organizations going to Cenk Uygur and asking him, what is it that you're doing? What are you doing that we need to do to bring our viewership up? This is the mainstream news organizations going to him, and he's telling them, tell the truth, tell the news. It's as simple as that. But anyway, I just wanted to do this because I'm really concerned for you guys. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't love the United States of America. It's true, you know. I spent a lot of time working there as a kid and traveling through there. When I left home, I joined a carnival. I mean, how's that for typical? But I did, and I spent a lot of time working carnivals through there, 13 years. And I grew up with a lot of American people around me, and I loved them all. And I just hate to see this stuff happening to you guys. So I'm going to keep fighting for you on my channel. And, well, that's the only place you're going to find this. And I don't have a large following, so you can't count on me for a lot of help. But for the people that do see this, I hope, for those of you who are in the United States, for those of you across the border on me here, I hope you will try and spread some of this out. Check it out for yourselves. You'll see what I mean about YouTube. They're not shy about listing their new guidelines, and you'll see what I mean about how ridiculous those new rules are. But anyway, that's about all I had to say. So I guess this will be my new posting. I'll get it up tonight or tomorrow morning. And in the meantime, behind me, that's How Sound that I'm always talking to you about, Burrard Inlet. And I'll put up some pictures maybe at the bottom of this, and some better shots than you're getting. I mean, I imagine here. I'm using my short lens instead of my long lens. But anyway, you guys all have, well, the weekend's over, but have a great week, and I hope you're all staying safe and healthy. Bye for now.